Nasturtium officinale. Nickname for this plant is ducks. This is part 1, and in part 2 I'll be sharing a mnemonic or memory technique to help you commit to memory the most distinguishing characteristics of this plant for identifying purposes. This is a weedy plant. It grows up to 2 feet tall. It could be found growing in water or on wet ground. Has a tendency to grow in very thick, mat-like colonies. This, what we see here, is called a raceme. They grow on the tip of the branches. A raceme is essentially a cluster of flowers. The seed pods here are what develop after the flowers. The raceme of the duck's plant are arranged along a central stem in a spiral staircase like formation. The seed pods, as you see here, are slightly curved. They are tapered on each end, and the seed pods are not pressed closely against the stem as another particular plant of this plant family, which is, by the way, mustard. The brassica the black mustard plant of the brassica family, its seed pods press closely against the stem, but as you see here, these seed pods are not. They can appear to be somewhat erect, but these are not. The individual flowers of this duck's plant are white, whereas again the mustard plants, two prior or formerly featured in this course, the brown mustard and the black mustard, have yellow flowers. They are all used identically for edibility and medicinal purposes. The seed pods here are somewhat ascending or erect, but still not pressed closely against the stem. It's a better picture of the raceme here, growing at or near the top of the stems. The flowers develop first, and as the flowers mature into seed pods, this is what you will see. In a later slide, we'll see a real picture of this transition from flower into seed pods. Notice this figure here. it is a good representation of the leaf. This entire part is referred to as a leaf. More specifically, it is called a compound leaf. It has many different parts. More specifically, it is referred to as a pennant compound leaf or an odd pennant compound leaf. In botany, pennant basically means feather-like. It appears to have a feather-like body. Now, with the duck's plant, the terminal leaf or the leaflet or the single leaflet at the tip, there's only one, which makes it an odd pennant compound leaf versus an even pennant compound leaf. There are some plants which have two leaflets at the top of a compound leaf, but the duck's plant's terminal leaflet is oftentimes much larger or slightly larger than the leaflets below it. You see here in this example and in these examples here. The leaflets are opposite of one another or slightly opposite of one another. We don't see any examples of this here, but they're not far enough apart to be considered alternate, but yet close enough apart from each other to be referred to as opposite, or they're just slightly separated. It is referred to as sub-opposite. The duck's plant, the common name watercress, has a taproot which is very fibrous. Here in this picture we can see an example of one of the seed pods. They split right down the middle, and in the middle it will have a translucent film which remains intact, which shows on both sides many seeds. The duck's plant, particularly when it is in water, has a tendency to grow roots at the nodes or at the joints. The edges or margins of the leaves are smooth, or they can be scalloped, which are essentially shallow, rounded projections. There are 6 stamen, 2 which are taller than the other 4. The seed is yellow, brown, yellowish brown or yellow to brown. There are 4 petals. The petals are formed in the shape of a cross, and there are 4 sepals. Notice here again how the terminal leaflet is larger than the other leaflets below it. Here we can see the difference between the arrangement of the leaves. This is an entire leaf. Remember, this is an entire leaf. It's a compound leaf, but a leaf nonetheless. The leaflets are opposite or subopposite, but the leaves alternate along the stem. And here again is the raceme or cluster of flowers at or near the top of the stem. The top surface of the leaves are brownish green, and the bottom surface of the leaves or leaflets are more pale green in color. This shows us another example of how the duck's plant, or common name watercress, grows roots at the nodes or joints. The leaves can be up to 6 inches long. Because this plant has a tendency to root at its nodes in the water or on wet ground, the plant can have a tendency to creep along the ground or grow in an ascending or an erect fashion. Alternating leaves, opposite or subopposite leaflets, odd, pennant, feather-like, compound, lots of parts, compound leaf. The leaflets are fleshy. The stems are very succulent and fat. Many branches. In the water, which is mostly always fresh and flowing, but not rapids. You'll find this plant in fresh, gently flowing water with a depth of no more than 6 inches. It will grow to reveal about 3 to 4 inches of the plant above the water. This is an example of a colony or many duck's plants. Four petals in the shape of a cross. White petals. have somewhat of a hot, sharp taste. The leaflets also have no stalks or no leaf stems. They're connected directly to the leaf stem. Notice how they are slanted at the base, mostly smooth, but again can have these rounded, scalloped protrusions or projections. Another good example here of the stalkless or stemless leaflet. There can be anywhere from 3 to 11 leaflets per leaf. The leaflets often bear a notch right at the tip as well. This pair is an example of subopposite, not directly opposite as these leaflets are, but slightly offset, which makes it subopposite arrangement. Terminal leaf, slightly larger in most cases. There is a hollow stem, which allows the plant to float on water. The stem is up to 2 feet long. Many seeds per seed pod. Again, slightly curved, tapered on each end, spiral staircase arrangement, hollow stem, white flowers. Rooting at the nodes. This is the picture of the transition I was telling you about earlier, where the flowers are developed first, and this raceme or flower cluster matures from the bottom up. So the flower that was once here has now developed into a seed pod. As the maturity ascends the stem, we see here how this flower, for instance, and this one, and others are starting to mature into seed pods. So you will likely find duck's plant somewhere in the middle or somewhere in the process of maturity. White flowers will generally be on top, the seed pods below. As I said before, the seeds are yellow-brown, and the edible parts of this plant are the leaves, the stems, seed pods, the seeds, and the flowers, essentially the whole plant. To learn how to prepare these plants, visit survivalplantsmemorycourse.com and click on the Nasturtium officinale link, common name watercress, nickname ducks, and on the fact sheet you will find methods of preparation. This has been part 1, and in part 2 I'll be sharing a mnemonic or memory technique to help you commit to memory the most distinguishing characteristics of this plant for identifying purposes. Thank you for watching.